Hello, everyone, and welcome to Kings of Fantasy Football podcast. I'm your co-host Pablo, and here's my co-host.
Leo.
So, hot off the presses, on this week's episode, we are going to discuss the 2024 NFL schedule release that just happened on Wednesday, and we're going to talk about it from the perspective of what games we think are going to be high-scoring fantasy games. So, um, dive right in. Week one, the actual opener. Chiefs versus Ravens. While everyone is probably going to scratch their heads and say, well, Ravens had one of the top defenses last year, I think first game, for it to be a defensive matchup is probably unlikely. Probably a lot of um, scoring in that game. You have Lamar Jackson on one side, you have Patrick Mahomes, Kelsey, Derrick Henry, Zay Flowers, Xavier Worthy, the rookie. I mean, I think that's going to be high scoring. I don't think the defenses are going to be able to stop each other the entire game. Um, Leonard, do you agree? Who do you like in that matchup?
Yeah, no, definitely that's especially since it's the first game of the year. I think both teams are going to be hyped, especially the Chiefs. They're getting their rings, they're home. If this game was in the playoffs, then maybe I think the defense will be yeah, by then each defensive team would be probably control the ball a little bit more, and the weather how that is. Uh, just by that Dolphins Chiefs game that was under -0. So I think definitely has a high chance to as a high scoring game for sure right off the bat. You also have we don't know what's gonna happen with Rashee Rice, if he's gonna be suspended or whatnot with his off field issues. So that might also allow the newly signed Marquise Brown to make a big splash in his debut with KC for sure.
Now, one thing I want to talk about for our listeners that are new into fantasy football, Thursday games, man, those those can be difficult to determine if you're going to start your players. However, um, quarterbacks like Lamar Jackson, Patrick Mahomes, you have Travis Kelce, Derrick Henry. I mean, if you're gonna spend high rounds drafting those players, I think that you have to start them. But later on in the season, it can become tricky to determine if you're gonna start them. But again, if you're gonna spend high draft capital to draft them high, then you have to start them. Um, the next game that I think is going to be interesting as well is the Friday game. You have Packers and Eagles. If if you have Jordan Love, you have um, any of his receivers, to be honest, because nobody thought that not either Jordan Love or his receivers would have a good fantasy year last year, and he proved everyone wrong. And then on the flip side, you have a brand new Eagles offense that is just stacked. I mean, people think that they're building a Madden Ultimate team over there. You have the newly acquired Saquon Barkley. You have AJ Brown, Devontae Smith, and then the no-brainer in Jalen Hurts. So I think those two games, I mean, right off the bat, very, very high scoring. What do you like from the Friday game of Packers and Eagles?
Yeah, this is probably another shootout as well. The Barkley, we're gonna find out right off the bat if he's gonna be a stud or not for the year. I think he is. Obviously, Jalen Hurts always has the stealing those goal line touches, but I still think that, Barkley should he's a he's definitely gonna be one to grab. He's gonna. I think they're finally gonna give him, usually the Eagles tend to have a running back by committee. Even though DeAndre Swift had a little bit more touches last year, but I think Barkley is far superior of DeAndre Swift, and he should definitely see more not only more carries, more receptions. That if you get him in the open field, he could take it to the house at any moment. So uh, it, he's another one to add to that. That with all those receivers and tight ends on both teams, and on the other side, we're gonna see Josh Jacobs, make his debut with the Packers. I think he's definitely someone to get. It might be a tough matchup in the beginning of the year with Jacobs, but towards the end of the year, I think he does have some matchups that he'll be able to exploit in the fantasy playoffs too. So yeah, just get your studs in there. What's going to be a little bit tricky might be the receivers for the Packers. Last year, Christian Watson, that he was the first receiver drafted by everyone. That he just tended to be always injured and really couldn't get his season going. So, but that allowed Jaden Reed to make a big splash as a rookie, and Davantian Wicks also was a player in certain games as well, and you always have Romeo Dobbs. So that's going to be tricky, probably in the receiver side of which one is going to be the one producing. Um, for me, I like Reed. Reed showed that he was always as consistent as long as he was in the starting lineup and getting the looks. So, but yeah, it's going to be interesting for sure. Another uh, fantasy fest for us to enjoy.
Now, one thing that I at least just want to ask you. So last year, um, according to Fantasy Pros, um, we had Saquon Barkley, running back number 13 overall, and then Josh Jacobs was 25. Do you see them finishing higher than that? I think for sure both of them should end up higher. I would imagine both of them, if they have good years, being in the top 15.
Yeah, I think so for sure. Like for one, Jacobs was injured, so as long as he's obviously if both of them stay healthy, they have a chance to get better. The main thing right off the bat for Barkley, he has a quarterback now that they're not going to be able to stack the box and receivers around him. That it's going to be very difficult to stack the box against Barkley. So that's going to allow him to get to pad the stats and get more easier looks and more area to run instead of having grabbing the handoff and having someone in your face. So he should have definitely more room to work. And Jacobs, he went from the Raiders that were the Raiders, and now yeah, he's in a better team as well that that has a rising quarterback with rising receivers. So another case that he'll have more opportunities to run as well. So their offensive line is pretty decent as well. So yeah, it should be they should definitely be ranked higher at the season's end compared to last year, 13 and 25 respectively for sure. What do you think about it?
I definitely think that both running backs are in better positions where they were last year. I think being with the Eagles, if Barkley can do well, it's going to open up the play action. So I just think the Eagles, if any position player from the Eagles, but especially if you're drafting Barkley, I think it should be a slam dunk. Same thing for Jacob. I mean, I'm not saying that the Green Bay's running backs were non-existent last year in fantasy, but you had Aaron Jones who was dealing with injuries, and if Josh Jacobs is healthy, and I'm not thinking he's going to be a 3 three down back, but he's going to get the majority, then definitely it should be way higher than 25, which is what he finished. Now pivoting to a matchup where you're probably going to be like, wow, why would you think that matchup? I honestly think, and this is knock on wood because we all know what happened in the first game for the Jets last year. But I think the Jets have the capability of upsetting the 49ers. I know every analyst that I've seen once the schedule is released thinks that they're trying to, do a rehash of last year, and they think that really you're going to put Aaron Rodgers coming off an Achilles against one of the most scariest defenses in the NFL. But I do think that if anybody can pick apart, defenses, it's Aaron Rodgers. He still has Breece Hall behind him. Garrett Wilson should have a way better year. And I think just fantasy wise, if he's healthy, Garrett Wilson's healthy, Breece Hall has another good year. I'm not saying that the 49ers are not going to score on the Jets defense either, but Jets defense is not a walk in the park. They had a really good defense last year, and I think if their offense can score points, I think that again that probably could be the upset of Week 1. What do you think?
Oh, they definitely have a possibility. Obviously, helps the 49ers. That's Monday night football. They're at home. And I know Aaron Rodgers still has a chip on his shoulder that the 49ers didn't draft him. And they drafted Alex Smith when both of them came out, and which propelled Aaron Rodgers to free fall to the Packers. Like I think it was pick 22 at that year. So I know he always has he wanted to play for them because he went to Cal, University of Cal, which is right there in San Francisco. So he's always comes to play, and especially against all those years when he was with Green Bay, always batting the 49ers. He always gets pumped up to play the 49ers. And then we got Coach Ally that he's returning home. He was the 49ers defensive coordinator a couple years ago before he went to be the head coach for the Jets. So, and he always has a great defense that will to to try to stop the 49ers. The thing is that 49ers have a lot of weapons, so we'll see. It's gonna be definitely a matchup right off the bat to see who's more on point, the 49ers offense or the Jets defense. With the Jets offense flirting behind. I'm very intrigued, man, to see Aaron Rodgers healthy with a healthy season with Garrett Wilson, to see what that can do. I'm really intrigued for that for sure.
For sure, man. Last year I had both of them in one league, and of course, Aaron Rodgers went down. Now let's talk about the 49ers for a bit. I do not believe, and a lot of McCaffrey owners are probably going to scratch their heads, but I do not think that Christian McCaffrey can repeat the year that he had last year. I mean, last year he was maybe like 100 points or more, was the closest running back that was next to him. I just don't see that happening. I think anytime that someone ends up as the overall best player, it's very hard to repeat. Because I believe when he was with Carolina, he was number 1 overall, and then the next year he dropped off a little bit.
Yeah.
And then I think receivers wise, we know that there's drama in the locker room right now as far as the receivers in San Francisco. You have Debo, you have Ayuk. We don't know if Ayuk's gonna play. So I think that they lose Ayuk, that catapults Debo, but I think that hurts Brock Purdy. Everyone was saying that he's a system quarterback, and that's why he had a good year since he has all the weapons. But they losing a weapon would hurt him. What do you think?
Well, going back to McCaffrey, I think as long as he's healthy, he's gonna be up there. Like you mentioned, he was with with the Panthers. He was number one, but he didn't do well because he got hurt. So as long as he's healthy, like he had a couple years that he had a little bit of dealt with a little bit of injuries. That's why people started shying away from him. Is he injury prone? But no, like the last 2 years, he's proved that he's healthy, and when he's healthy, he's a beast. So that like we say that's about any fantasy football player, right? But as long as he's healthy, definitely he should be probably number one player off the board. And in terms of the receivers, Debo, Ayuk, they proved last year they can play. The Debo's another player that tends to deal with injuries because he goes all out. He plays all over the field, in the backfield, all over the place, and he tends to get banged up a little bit. As you know, I, as I believe in the system there in San Francisco. With Kyle Shanahan, as long as everyone's there, they and they're winning, it should be cool. Now, if they start losing, maybe this drama will start blowing up a little bit more and stuff like that. But as long as they can keep getting the W's, they should be all right. It's gonna be interesting with they picked up a rookie, which kind of probably led a little bit to this drama. Purcell, from the University of Florida. That probably, I think that kind of started the ball rolling with the drama with you. They thought maybe one of them are going to get traded or both. But if they all stay healthy there, they got George Kittle. They're studs. It's gonna be definitely a team to watch for sure.
So we're gonna pivot here into some, according to Fox Sports and ESPN and all these websites, or the must-see games this year, and I'm gonna look at it from a fantasy perspective. The first one I'm gonna be a little bit biased is the revenge game for Stephon Diggs. So Texans and Bills. You have Texans with another addition in Diggs. Offense was good last year. Dale should recover from his injury that he sustained a few weeks ago. And then on the other side, you have Josh Allen, who's QB1 last year, but he lost some weapons. He does have a rookie that they drafted. He has Kincaid. He has Schultz. I mean, not Schultz. What's the other one? Kincaid and the tight end from Buffalo.
Oh, Knox, Dawson Knox.
So Kincaid and Knox. Um, I know everyone's probably gonna, have that circled on the calendar just to see what a lot of people have been thinking about is, did Josh Allen have consistency because he had to? So what do you think about that supposed revenge game?
So yeah, that's gonna be. I think that happens on week 5, I believe. So that's gonna be a nice matchup to see. Uh, the the what the Texans did last year was unbelievable. I know you're their number one fan in Houston, but the president of their fan club. But and I told you, have faith, and then they showed up. But the CJ Stroud, I thought he was gonna be okay, but he proved without a shadow of a doubt that he was probably should have been the number one pick. And I know you're happy that the Panthers went with Young. But other than that, they had Collins, they had Dell, Schultz, and let's do a trade and pick up Diggs too, so that they're gonna be loaded to see the Bills defense. They got a little bit of a hit, with their cornerbacks. Some of them have left. Uh, to their all-world Travis White, I think it was let go. and so it's going to be interesting to see how they can hang it. There's going to probably be a shootout. It's just going to be interesting to see what Bills receiver to is going to rise, because they spent like a lot of capital trying to fill in the shoes of not only Diggs but also Gabe Davis also is gone as well. So you got Shakir that we'll see if he can step up his game. Curtis Samuel, which I've been high on. Hopefully, he gets more touches. They signed Chase Claypool. They just signed Marquez Valdez Scantling. It's just been they drafted Keon Coleman. So we're gonna see which he's got a plethora of receiver of there to throw to, and hopefully they can come up. Most of all those receivers are wide receiver twos, wide receiver threes. Unless one of them proves that they can rise up to be a wide receiver one. The main probably the one you want to attack and your draft to grab is going to be Dalton Kincaid. I think he's probably going to be the like I want to say maybe Travis Kelsey-esque Sam Laporta rise. If everything goes how I think they should, that he should. That was his first year. He dealt with some injuries. He did come on strong towards the end. So I think he's definitely one that you might want to grab there. If you miss out on those top tight ends that are gonna go early.
I agree, especially with Kincaid. I think he had a good rookie year, as you said. He dealt with some injuries, but I think his stock should rise, especially if the wide receivers don't pan out for Buffalo. I think Kincaid could be Allen's security blanket. But speaking of Allen, I don't think he ends up as the QB1. I mean, he's had really good, 3-4 year stretch where he wasn't QB1, he was at least top five. But I think if you take away all these weapons, it's going to be really hard. But at least his saving grace is his legs. He gets you rushing touchdowns, he gets you rushing yards. So I think that'll be his saving grace. What game do you think our viewers should especially watch?
Yeah, the Bills. Yeah, with Allen. You know, he lost a big hit with her with Diggs gone. But yeah, like we've talked before, he should make. I don't think he's gonna be the QB1. But yeah, he can run. He's not gonna far too far though. Like he's still to me probably be top three, top five. Um, he's gonna be up there no matter what. Because he's a gamer. He does. He's a big boy. He's gonna run, gonna get touchdowns. When he's up, close to the goal line. What I do like about the Bills too, like especially him, like the first 5 games of the season is gonna probably be possible shooters. They start off with the Arizona Cardinals that we're all excited to see. Marvin Harrison with Kyler Murray over there. Then they go to the Dolphins. They play the Jaguars, the Ravens, and then the Texans. So those first 5 games, is gonna be possible shootouts that they're gonna be involved in. So it should be fun.
All right. And now this matchup is going to be way later in the year, but I still think it should be very interesting because of the fact that it's, towards the end of the season. It is a rematch of 49ers and Lions. Now, for all the Lions fans, I know it was heartbreaking for you. So you guys probably have that circled on your calendar. Um, I think because it's so late in the year, we should know who's going to be in the playoffs, who's not. Um, but I really enjoyed that matchup from a fantasy perspective. You have Goff, you have Amon-Ra, you have Laporta, you have Gibbs on one side, on the other side, where you talk about the 49ers. But let's talk about Detroit. I think the year that they had last year, from a fantasy perspective, how you had two really good running backs. You had Amon Ra, who's been consistent since he's been in the league, but the biggest surprise was Laporta. Um, I think Amon Ra is going to continue his consistency. Um, I don't know if Laporta will be able to have as good a year. What do you think?
I think he's still gonna be have a good year as well. Tight ends tend to have take like a year or two to get acclimated to the league, and right off the bat, he was kind of like even Kelsey took a year to get going. Um, but like when Gronk came, he was a beast coming off the right off the bat. Uh, and he's just he's athletic. They use him great in that offense. Him and Saint Amon, Raw. Those are the two guys that clean house there. So I think he still be produce well for fantasy managers. Um, right now, I think he's the first tight end that's coming off the board, even ahead of Kelsey. Uh, as, what I've seen in ADP. So it's going to be interesting. I think I think he should still be productive. Obviously, injury, always away from injury.
Right. So some other matchups that I think will again produce some, if you want to call them fireworks, or the Eagles at Bengals week 8. So you have Joe Burrow coming off an injury, um, which devastated fantasy managers last year. It affected Jamar Chase, of course. I think from the clips that I've seen, I mean, Burrow's throwing, but we don't know what to expect. Of course, Jamar Chase, elite wide receiver. They lost Joe Mixon. I still think, even with losing Joe Mixon, these high-powered offenses nowadays, it's very hard for NFL defenses to stop them. And I think from a fantasy perspective, you want to have some of these elite playmakers that that you don't have to worry about. I mean, you're not going to be benching Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase. You're not going to be benching any of the position players from the Eagles. Do you think Burrow can rebound this year?
I think he can. If he's recovered from his injury, you know, uh, he has the weapons there. Not only does he have Jamar Chase, like you mentioned, he has T Higgins. They actually brought in Mike Gesicki as a tight end a couple years ago when he was with the Dolphins. He was he's very athletic, so maybe he can provide you know some extra you know uh, another weapon for him. They did lose like you said they did lose Joe Mixon, but also they lost Tyler Boyd, he was a good third receiver for them. So it's gonna be interesting to see which uh, receiver comes through. They did draft a rookie named Jermaine Burton later, so that might be a name to keep an eye on to see if he produces. And then they brought in Zach Moss as the running back to replace Joe Mixon. So he when he filled in for Jonathan Taylor last year, he did well, and so we'll see if he can continue that. There's also Chase Brown there as well. That he might be he's a second year player, a running back that someone to look later in your drafts as well. If Zach Moss falters a little, Brown is He's a dual threat player that can provide some 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 fantasy points for fantasy managers for sure. But yeah, Burrow, he's a gamer, man. Like you know, cool Joe, bro. If he's healthy, bro, he's gonna be slinging it for sure. He's on my fantasy team, so he better. My dynasty team.
So, thank you everyone for tuning in. Hope you like the episode. If you have any questions, you can reach me on X at Archreaper, ARCHREAPER. We are available on all the major platforms. We just got added to YouTube podcasts. We're on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, so all the major platforms. Feel free to share with your friends, family, anyone who's interested in fantasy football. Leo, where can they reach you?
Thanks again for listening. We're very appreciative. If you like the show, please like and rate the podcast. That helps us to get noticed. And like if you want to reach me, you can reach me at on X at smooth1074. I'm also on TikTok. I do some, I've done some videos when the NFL draft just passed. That's at FF Leo G. And on Player Profiler, I've been, I work with in the news desk. So there's any players that there's news. I mainly focus on the AFC East teams, and and I also have articles that are going to be coming soon at Fighting Chance Fantasy. And thanks again for listening, and I hope you guys have a great week.
Thank you, everyone.